من التزم السلفية حصل الخير كله وحصل أجرا عظيما وفيرا كبيرا لأنه لزم هدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم.
بسم الله الحمد لله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله عز وجل وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدع وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. وبعد. Alhamdulillah, we're continuing with the biography of a great Shaykh and Imam al-Mujaddid, the reviver of the Deen of Tawḥīd and Sunnah in the Arabian Peninsula. He was renowned and well known, and he is well known till today. And he is the Shaykh Islam Imam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. Imam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. So we're still continuing with that, with part 2 of his biography. And just as a recap of his biography, he was born in 1115 al-Hijrah. He was born 1115 al-Hijrah in the city of Uyayna. In the city of Uyayna, which is about 70 kilometers from Riyadh. He was born in 1115 al-Hijrah in the city of Uyayna, 70 kilometers from Riyadh. He came from a religious family. His father was a scholar as well as his uncles. He came from a religious family. His father was a scholar and a judge, a qadi at that time. And a very well known family, which was well known. He memorized the Quran at the age of 10. He memorized the Quran at the age of 10. And he read the books of tafsir, hadith, and fiqh. And he learned from the books of Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Qayyim, rahimahumullah jamia'. At the age of 12, his father got him married off. Got married at the age of 12, which shows his maturity. And then after that, at a later stage, he went off to visit, to perform Hajj in Mecca. And then he went and visited Medina. And he benefited from the scholars at that time. Now, when we remember the condition of Najd, which is the Riyadh, the central Saudi Arabia area, we find that it was steeped in shirk, worshipping Allah, with putting partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in worship, and many un-Islamic practices. They were indulged in deeds of shirk and un-Islamic practices. They would have shrines and go to graves, and they would have trees. They would have trees which they would worship, stones, rocks, caves, and they would go and worship the jinn and all these evil matters at that time in Najd. So the Shaykh began by teaching the people the Quran and the Sunnah of what he had learnt, and then he travelled to other places like Basra in Iraq and other countries. And he saw the hal, the situation of the people there. And he began his book, Kitāb at-Tawḥīd, while he was there, but he didn't complete it until he got back. And it shows us the great importance of the Tawḥīd of Allah Azza wa Jal and his experiences of what he encountered of people committing shirk with Allah by shrines and graves and going to the dead and the saints, as they claim. So the Shaykh began his da'wah of Tawheed and Sunnah, and he started inviting the other people and different scholars from around the world to this Tawheed and Sunnah and fighting against shirk and bid'ah in innovation and superstitious matters, until when the Shaykh finally came back to Uwaina, his city of birth. And he was welcomed gladly in that city, or that place, by the ruler at that time, and assured him of every help and aid for the Islamic da'wah. So has this place started becoming well known for teaching and knowledge, some of the other rulers from different areas began to threaten the ruler of Al-Uwaina. And because the ruler of Al-Uwaina was not strong and did not have an army or anything like that, became worried, and he evicted Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, or he advised him to leave that place and go to another place. So the Shaykh Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab went to another place called Dar'iyya. The place that he went to is called Dar'iyya, which is also in Riyadh, modern day Riyadh. And that's because his father had moved there as well. His father had moved to Dar'iyya. So this is where we left off in our last lesson, looking at the biography of this great Imam, al-Mujaddid, the reviver of the deen, Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. And this is where we're going to carry on. So the Shaykh migrated from Uwaina to Dar'iyya. And the people of Dar'iyya knew the Shaykh very well. And they were also aware of his mission. People of Dar'iyya knew about him, because it's in the surrounding area of Uwaina. And the ruler of Dar'iyya at that time, because remember we said that at the time of Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, the Najd area was controlled by different tribes. Different areas were controlled by different tribes. There was not one ruling tribe over the whole area. So every tribe had its own little area, and they would judge and govern that area according to their own rules. Some of them applying a little bit of Sharia, and most of them not applying any Sharia whatsoever, just based upon tradition and tribal rule. So when Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab moved to Dar'iyya, the Imam or the ruler of Dar'iyya was Amir Muhammad bin Saud bin Muhammad al-Mukrin. He was the original founder of the Saudi dynasty. Amir Muhammad bin Saud bin Muhammad al-Mukrin. Okay, and that's where the Al Saud come from. The family of Saud, this kingdom of Saudi Arabia, that's where they originate from. So when he came to know about the arrival of the Shaykh into his area, his territory, Dar'iyya, he was very pleased.
He was very pleased that Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab is coming to his area because he knew about him. He knew about him. And the scholars or the people at that time the scholars knew about Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab and his knowledge, because he was corresponding with, while he was in Al-Uyayna, he was corresponding with others, giving da'wah, people were coming to him, so they knew about him. So they went to Muhammad bin Saud and said that he has come to our area and we think it's a good thing if you support him. And the status of Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab was great. And this is a sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises who He wishes amongst the people. Allah places love in the hearts of the believers for whom He wishes. So when we like or love a personality, it's not based upon tribal reasons. It's not based upon, oh, he's from the same city as me in my country, or he's from the same family. No, it's based upon the strength of Iman in Kitāb wa Sunnah and the correct understanding upon the way of the Salaf. This is our love and our passion for somebody is based upon that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places that in our hearts. And Allah has raised the level of the people of knowledge. Allah has raised the level of the people of knowledge. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that in many ayat in the Quran, that the people who of knowledge are not the same as the people who are criminals or the deviant. And this is mentioned in many places in the Quran. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed in the heart of Amir Muhammad bin Saud love for the Shaykh, because he was told about the Shaykh from many of his companions and his friends. And look how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed it into the heart of even the wife of Muhammad bin Saud. Placed that love for the Shaykh when she found out about the Shaykh coming, and she placed it. Allah placed it into the heart of even the Shaykh's wife, the Imam Amir Muhammad's wife, where she said that this man will place a way out for us. Allah will place in this man a way out for us. So take him and accept him amongst you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him as a ghanima, as a gain for us. And then adhere to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gained us with. And this is a woman that had intellect and knowledge, because she knew about the Shaykh. So she knew about his da'wah, she knew about the Kitāb and the Sunnah, she knew about Tawḥīd and Sunnah. So this was a wise woman. And this is always the case, that when a person marries a wise woman, that the wise man listens to the advice that his wife gives him. He listens to the advice that his wife gives him. And we find this with the Prophet ﷺ. There are so many instances where the Prophet ﷺ actually went to his wives for advice. He would go to Aisha for advice. He would go to the other of his wives for advice regarding different situations. And sometimes he would accept that advice, sometimes he would not take that advice. So this is also very, very important. We should not be of those who are mutakabbir, yani arrogant, and think that, oh, I don't need to listen to a woman. Who is she? But if the woman is aqil, she has intellect, and she has knowledge of the deen, then In Shā Allāh, hopefully she'll be able to advise you with good. So he took the advice of his wife. And she said many other matters as well regarding Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. So Amir Muhammad bin Saud actually went to Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. Now, the people had said to him that when you go there, go to him walking. Go to him walking. And go like in a procession. So that perhaps that the people will see this and they will yukrimuhu, that they will be generous to him and give him that status that Muhammad Abdul Wahhab rahimullah deserves. So that's what he did. And Amir Muhammad, because he had already decided and he came to know about Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, and that he came from a pious family and a practicing Muslim, and he was a great scholar. He gave him that izzah, he gave him that respect, and he actually said to him, I give you good glad tidings of a place on a land which is good for you, which is better than the place you were in before. And I give you good glad tidings of al-izzah, honor, and blessings. And the Shaykh says, and I likewise. So Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab replied to him and said, I likewise give you good tidings, good news of honor and strengthen the land with this kalima of La ilaha illallah. And whoever holds on to it and acts upon it and aids it, then he will be able to have authority on this land and the people. So this was the reply that Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab gave. So this formed a union, an alliance between knowledge and strength, between the knowledge and the sword. So Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab joined forces, an alliance with Amir Muhammad bin Saud. And this was the foundation for the first Saudi dynasty. And we should understand that it's not a regime. Yeah? You know, the media is very clever in the usage of their words. They say the Saudi regime, okay? Trying to make it derogatory, try to put them down. This is a regime that, they commit crimes and they commit bad things. They do bad things. And this is the way that the media uses language. So it was not a regime. Rather, they wanted to implement justice, Kitāb and Sunnah, Tawḥīd and Sunnah, to fight against shirk and bid'ah and kufr. They wanted to implement Islam. We know this from the da'wah of Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab and his books, and we'll see that later, that he was far away from excommunicating Muslims, like making takfir of Muslims, or taking them outside the fold of Islam. Rather, it was the other way round. But as every scholar has a duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to convey and teach the people the correct deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, to teach the people the Tawḥīd and the Sunnah, to teach the people to keep away from bid'ah and shirk and anything that opposes the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to help increase the iman of the people. And this is the way of the scholars. So you find that this is the usage of words, how they're very, very clever in how they manipulate and twist wordings, and they use these words and they apply them to the Muslims. And we can see that especially nowadays with this attack by the Jews upon the Muslims in Palestine, and how they play with the media and they openly lie, because it's well known that the Jews lie. Okay, this is well known, and they know very well that the Muslims are truthful. The Muslims, their foundation is that they are truthful. So this alliance was formed. Now, this alliance wasn't blindly followed. It wasn't like, yes, whatever the Amir says we'll do, because even at that time, when Amir Muhammad bin Saud said to Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, he said, we'll join you, but with two conditions. That you will not leave us once Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us victory and given us authority. Yani, you will continue to be along with us, yeah, advising us, teaching us, helping us, yeah, these type of things. And so this was a wise matter from the ruler, because he wanted the advice of the scholar. And we find that until today, this is the same situation. In the kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the scholars advise the rulers. Now, it's a different thing if the rulers want to implement what the scholars advise them with. That's a completely different matter. That's up to them. If they take that advice or don't take that advice, it's up to them. Just like any Muslim that is advised, it's up to them. If they want to take the advice, they have the choice. If they're wise, they will take the advice of the scholar. And if they're not wise, they will reject the kalam of the scholar. So, Amir Muhammad bin Saud said, we want you to stay with us. And the second thing is, he said that you do not stop any Amir, any ruler, from taking tax from Ahlul Dar'iyah. Because it was well known, Dar'iyah is very green. It had vegetation there. They had agriculture there. So the ruler would take from that. He would take from that. They would take a tax from that. So Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, rahimahullah, as being a scholar, said to him, replied to him, he said, okay, no problem, we will stay with you. Our blood is your blood, and your blood is our blood. Our destruction is your destruction. Yani, we will stay with you. He said, as for the second matter, about taking the taxes from the people, from their produce, he said, perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you victory, and many victories, by which you will have many war gains, and this will suffice you from taking a tax from Ahlul Dar'iyah. It will suffice you from taking taxes from Ahlul Dar'iyah. So this was another wise statement that Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, rahimahullah, presented to Amir Muhammad bin Saud. So, once this alliance was formed, he had the protection of Amir Muhammad bin Saud. Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab began teaching. He began teaching, and he strived to teach the people on the way of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. And he was teaching the people from the texts of the Quran and the Sunnah. And that's what we find from Kitāb at-Tawḥīd. When we look at Kitāb at-Tawḥīd, In Shā Allāh, which we'll hopefully go on to study, bi'idhnillah, you find that it is a book based upon evidences from the Kitāb and the Sunnah, from the Quran and the Sunnah, this ayat and hadith. So this was the foundation of what he would teach. He would teach them the knowledge of... So he wouldn't teach them stories like you find some of these satellite scholars or these YouTube influencers that give you nice stories of this happened and that happened and bamboozle the people and give poetry and these type of matters and try to entertain the people to raise their iman. To the extent that there'll be du'at, claim to be du'at, on there, invite us to the deen of Allah, and they'll have cartoons made on themselves. Subhanallah. How low can a person get? Have a cartoon figure made of himself, and he's walking around in the supermarket or wherever advising the Muslims. He thinks that this is the way of da'wah. These people think that this is the way of da'wah. Or having these, panel topics, and showing off their flash cars and their muscles and training very hard in the gym and, these type of matters. Or these others who, try to teach you how to brush a cat, comb a cat, or break walnuts. These are people of subhanallah, they have no understanding or concern for the correct da'wah of Kitāb and Sunnah based upon the methodology of the Salaf al-Salih. To them it's entertainment. To them it's cartoons and jokes and these type of matters. Subhanallah. And then they own up and they claim, and Allah exposes them. They say, well, I don't really know anything about the different sects and groups and parties in the religion of Allah. So don't open your mouth then. Don't speak. If your foundation is not correct, on the correct foundation, do not speak. Be quiet and learn about the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they joined forces, Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab and Amir Muhammad ibn Saud. So Dar'iyah became a center of the da'wah. And the Shaykh found himself in a peaceful environment. You'll find that when there's a peaceful environment, this is suitable for giving da'wah. But the takfiris and the jihadis and the extremist terrorists, they don't want peace and unity. They don't want peace and peaceful environments and calm. They want chaos because they're aslan, they are bloodthirsty. These terrorists, these type of people, they're bloodthirsty. They don't care about the life of any Muslim. They just want to do what they want to do. They want to follow their Ikhwani methodology. So they don't want peace and quiet. They don't want peace so people can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala peacefully. No, they want chaos. So they'll go out and do these suicide missions. And they'll go out and start killing innocent people, knowing very well that the consequences are extremely bad. The consequences are very evil. Like we've seen now in Palestine, where Hamas, this deviant organization, this Ikhwani, Rafidi Shia organization, has come out and started killing innocent people, and now the enemies of Allah are destroying and killing the Muslims in their thousands. Killing them in their thousands. And that shows that these people of Hamas, that they have no respect for human life. They have no respect for Muslim human life. Because if they did, they would know that they're weak and they cannot do anything, and they have to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make their religion stronger and make themselves stronger. So this is what the takfiris and jihadis and these extremists want. They want chaos because they thrive on this chaos. And then the kuffar aid them. The kuffar, the Americans and the British and the European governments, they aid the terrorists. And it's so clear. And the Israelis aid them. It's so clear. Allah exposes them by themselves opening up and owning up to this, that they supported them with weapons. And it's very clear for anybody who has any intellect to see that. So Dar'iyah became a center of learning. And Amir Muhammad bin Saud himself presented himself to the Shaykh and would study along with his members of his family. So Dar'iyah was crowded with people visiting for learning. And we find that Amir al-Saud, the family of Saud, Amir Muhammad bin Saud, have continuously been like that. To the extent that even the kings of Saudi Arabia nowadays, they were students. King Abdulaziz, rahimahullah ta'ala, the founding father of the third dynasty of Saudi Arabia, the father of the current king, King Salman, he himself used to teach Kitāb at-Tawḥīd. He used to teach Kitāb at-Tawḥīd. And King Salman, حفظه الله ta'ala, was the current ruler of the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He memorized the Quran when he was 10 years old. He memorized the Quran, King Salman memorized the Quran when he was 10 years old. So it shows us that through their lineage that they've been educated on the religion. Obviously, they cannot implement anything and everything because of outside forces. Yeah, because a person can turn around and say, well, hang on, you're saying that they're so educated on the deen, then why are they doing this and this and this and this? It's not always from what you see is the situation, no. And what you see is no, there's something behind it. Yeah, sometimes the ruler has to repel the evil from the enemy by accepting the lesser of the two evils. By accepting the lesser of the two evils, he can repel the enemy. Or that sometimes that they have to allow certain things to get certain things. And many, many other things of which we, the common people, don't see and don't understand. Because we don't see it, we don't understand it, we don't have that knowledge, and we're not in that same situation. So we think, yeah, we can do anything. So like, for example, now, some of the Muslims are shouting out and saying, where are the Muslims? Where are the Muslim leaders? Why don't they come out and fight and protect the Palestinians? You, for example, are so weak that you don't even get up for Fajr. You yourself are so weak that you're going on demonstrations and protests. You yourself are so weak that you can't even wear hijab. And then you start talking about big things. Where are they? Where are they? This is what you're saying. And you yourself. And then you start making excuses for yourself. You start making excuses for not practicing the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as much as you can. And yet you're ready to blame somebody else. You're ready to look somewhere else. The Muslims were good, that Allah would allow them to be subjugated like this? This is the question that you need to ask. And you're supposed to ask the question, who allowed this to happen? It was Allah. So we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help, and we feel bad about the death and the harm that the Muslims are suffering that's going on. Yes, la shak, there is no doubt. But how to change it and correct it, that's a different matter. Then, as the people started migrating to Dar'iyah and it became a center of learning, his enemies became jealous and they started spreading false propaganda. Okay, they blamed him of blasphemy. Yeah, to that point, they used to say that he claims he's a prophet. A'udhu billah. When you start calling to the Sunnah, this is what you're going to face. They started branded him as a sorcerer, magician. Yeah, they started saying bad things. This is the way of the Ahlul Bidah, that they go down to such a low level, the Ahlul Bidah, they start name calling, derogatory names, terrible names. And this was said to the Prophet ﷺ. This was said about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, that he is a sha'ir al-majnoon. He's a crazy poet. Crazy poet. They used to say horrible things against the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Such a gentle soul. They used to call him sha'ir majnoon, yani a crazy poet. And they used to call him a magician and many, many other things. Horrible, horrible statements against the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what do you expect from the rest of the people that they will say to anybody who follows the correct path, because they will want to warn against the correct path? The shaitan doesn't want people to follow and worship Allah in the way he wants to be worshipped, by following the Sunnah. So we have to be ready when we're on the correct path to be aware that people will say derogatory things against us. Okay? And the people on the false path, the deviated path, They cannot claim that, oh, you see, these Salafis, they always speak against us. They call us bad names and these type of things. Yes, because you are on the wrong deviant path, because we've explained to you, we've told you, we've laid it out for you to follow the correct path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Kitāb and the Sunnah, ala fahm salaf al-ummah. We've told you that, we've explained it to you, we've been gentle with you, and still you choose to follow the wrong path, then we warn against you. Then Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab began corresponding, writing letters, sending information to other areas of Saudi Arabia, to Qasim, Al-Ha'il, Mecca, Medina, other places around, and as well as outside of Saudi Arabia to Syria, Iraq, India, Yemen, Afghanistan, Morocco, many other places, and the people became attracted to his da'wah. And how can they not be attracted to this da'wah, which is so clear and simple? This da'wah of Kitāb was Sunnah, that's it. Follow the correct understanding, how the Sahaba, the Tabi'in, the Atba' Tabi'in, the great Imams, Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim, Imam Abu Dawood, the great Imams, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad, Imam Malik, how they understood the religion, and the great scholars after them until our time. So this was what he did. He started inviting the other scholars to the correct path. Then towards this we find that Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah passed away. He had dedicated his whole life to da'wah and jihad of teaching with utmost sincerity, and with the help of Amir Muhammad ibn Saud and the rulers of Dar'iyah. Then Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah passed away from an illness, and he passed away in 1206 al-Hijrah. He passed away in 1206 al-Hijrah, corresponding to 1792 into the Christian era, 1792. But we see the impact of his da'wah, that for a period of 50 years, a complete victory over the entire area of Najd was gained. It was a complete victory over Najd. So people abandoned worshipping graves, tombs, shrines, trees, and started practicing the proper faith of Islam. They started coming to Dar'iyah to ask for people to implement the Sharia upon them if they had committed great crimes. And the obligatory duties were being established. And many people started visiting that area, and they started praying, and as well as the towns and the villages. And people became safe in the desert and the lonely pathways. Because when we remember that there was a lot of lawlessness over there in those areas, but with the impact of the da'wah, this place became safe, and the Shaykh left behind many students. He left behind many students from his children and his grandchildren. Some of his works, his famous works, and the most famous of his works is Kitāb at-Tawḥīd. And that's what, In Shā Allāh, hopefully we're going to be studying. And Kitāb at-Tawḥīd, we know it's very famous. Why? Because so many of the scholars have done explanations of Kitāb at-Tawḥīd. For example, the best or the most comprehensive explanation is by his grandson, Abdurrahman ibn Hassan ibn Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, and the book is called Fath al-Majid li Sharh Kitāb at-Tawḥīd. Fath al-Majid li Sharh Kitāb at-Tawḥīd, and this is the most comprehensive explanation of Kitāb at-Tawḥīd. I think there are some translations of that available, not complete, because they're this book is very large and a detailed explanation. And it brings a lot of references from Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Qayyim, rahimahullah, and it's very comprehensive. And then there's other explanations from different angle, like Taysir al-Aziz al-Hamid, which is also by his grandson Sulaiman ibn Abdullah, and many others as well, many other explanations as well. To our current time, there's explanations of that. Likewise, he had a book called Kitāb al-Kabā'ir, Mukhtasar Sirat al-Rasul, biography of the Prophet. Kashf al-Shubahat, a very famous book of exposing the doubts of the people who worship shrines and graves, and many other works as well, especially Usul al-Thalatha, which is one of his main works of the foundation of Tawḥīd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The last point we'd like to end with is that you'll see, or you may see, pictures of being sent around of Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. People claiming that this is a photograph of Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, rahimahullah. This is not true. This is not true. Why? Because photographs of the cameras were not invented until after Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab passed away. Cameras hadn't been invented for another 35 years. Okay? So this surah, this picture that people claim is going around of Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab is not true, because cameras weren't invented for another 35 years. So it is not acceptable. Likewise, we find that, the great foundation that the scholars of Saudi Arabia were upon is that in around 1412, which is approximately 30-something years ago, 32 years ago approximately, what happened was that Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab's house in Huraymala, in a certain area, where he lived for a short while, the governor of Riyadh at that time, of our time, at 30-something years ago, they wanted to fix up the house of Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. They wanted to repair it, and they wanted to fix it up so it can be a memory. At that time, Shaykh bin Baz rahimahullah ta'ala and the Lajna Da'ima, the committee for the research and da'wah, they rejected this. They rejected this because they said, we fear that this will be a means for ghulu, extremism in the Shaykh Muhammad, regarding Shaykh Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. Yeah, that people will go there and start getting barakah from his house and that type of stuff. So they rejected this offer, this point. And that shows us that the scholars of Saudi Arabia, they don't have this extreme biasness to Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. Rather, it's to the truth. That's what they're biased towards. And they're not biased towards the individual. Rather, they're biased towards the truth and the da'wah, which is based upon the Kitāb and the Sunnah. With that, we've come to the end of today's lesson. Jazakumullahu khairan for listening. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Anta astaghfiruka wa atubu alayk.